mentioned extreme events like wildfires and hurricanes. Why has your carbon tax not stopped those things if that is the answer to these problems?
This question, which I've heard in the House of Commons by many Conservative Party members, including Pierre Poilievre, is yet another example of the fundamental disbelief that you have in climate science and in science full stop. We won't solve climate change overnight, and we certainly won't solve climate change with empty slogans. It's going to take years of hard work to tackle this environmental crisis, and the fact that you believe that somehow we can flick a switch on a wall and everything's going to be fine just shows how the total ignorance that you and many others have when it comes to the issue of climate change.
This, ladies and gentlemen, is Steven Guilbeault, and he just had to pay a $20,000 fine, court-ordered by a judge for a lawsuit that Rebel News, the CEO or the owner, Ezra Levant, at least the face of Rebel News, filed against him because Steven Guilbeault, the radical climate extremist, blocked people, or blocked specifically Ezra Levant, and a judge ordered him to pay a fine. This is insane. This is a massive W video here. Welcome back to another video, everybody. Today we have a very juicy one. We've got, a lawsuit that actually worked in favor of the people. Now, sort of. We're going to get into the details and the financials of that. Ezra Levant has a long Twitter thread and a little video to show everybody on, what's happening behind the scenes and stuff like that about this lawsuit. But this is a big victory for, I guess, freedom of speech and putting politicians in their place. Before we get into it, I want to encourage you to give a like, subscribe, follow if you haven't yet, share this video out to as many people as you can, share it to your personal Facebook, share it to Facebook groups, WhatsApp groups, whatever it is, because this is going to be very informative and very interesting. Very, very interesting. So I found this on Ground News. An environment minister must unblock Rebel News founder Levant on X, or formerly known as Twitter, under an actual court order. So I've got some articles pulled up here. First is the Post Millennial. Rebel News wins lawsuit against Trudeau minister who blocked Ezra Levant on Twitter. On Tuesday, Ezra Levant announced that Rebel News had won its lawsuit against Steven Guilbeault after Judge Justin Zinn ruled that the Trudeau Liberals environment minister has acted illegally by blocking him on Twitter, now known as X. Guilbeault has been ordered by court to unblock Ezra Levant and pay $20,000. This is insane. These public servants don't realize that you're a politician, and yes, you are a human being, and you have human being rights, just like every Canadian citizen. But you are a public servant, and your Twitter is a government official account. So even though it's your name and your face and a lot of your words, he does actually have a team of like 20 plus people running his Twitter account, and it is a government service. It's actually vital information for Canadians to know, and Rebel News especially, since they're in media, and basically they just had one of their media opportunities ripped out from under them. But it got overturned, thankfully. So Ezra Levant on September 11th said, breaking, we just crushed Trudeau's minister, Steven Guilbeault. In court, he illegally blocked us on Twitter. Today, he was ordered to unblock us and pay $20,000 to Rebel News. Wow. His lawyers tried to get me to keep the details secret. Read the facts here. Wow. This is actually a court order that they won. This is incredible. Order, whereas the parties have come to a resolution to this matter as described by this order, and whereas the parties have advised the court that they consent to the within order, and whereas the parties acknowledge that the recipients do not admit and in fact deny any liability in respect to the allegations made in the application. This is awesome, and I hope that we see more of this, and it should really set the precedent for politicians moving forward that, hey man, you can't just do whatever you want. You can't just block people because you're sick and tired of what they have to say and their criticism towards you. Chances are it's probably pretty warranted. Let's take a look at some of the replies here, and then we'll come back to that video. Michelle says, congrats, huge win for the Canadians, for all Canadians. Thank you, Rebel News and Ezra, for what you did. Yeah, congratulations. Great, congratulations. Love it. I mean, people are just absolutely loving and very supportive of what's happened. And for those who don't know, Rebel News, for any Americans out there, which or people who just don't know what Rebel News is. Rebel News is a huge independent media company here in Canada. I would argue that they're the largest, but I don't know if that's actually true or not. But it seems like they are the largest. At least they make they rattle the most amount of feathers and most amount of trees. So great job, Ezra. He does have a short video. We're just going to watch a little piece of it so we can be all caught up to speed.
Like Trudeau, Guilbeault doesn't care about freedom of the press or other constitutional rights. They both admire China's dictatorship, and they think they can act like little dictators themselves by censoring us. And they're both thin-skinned and petty. So here's what Guilbeault did. He ordered his government department to block us on Twitter. So we couldn't receive any government news updates from his department's Twitter account. We couldn't read anything, we couldn't reply, and of course we couldn't ask him journalistic questions on Twitter. We were effectively kicked out of the public square, which is what Twitter has become. We were banned from a government service just because we disagreed with a politician. So we sued. We went to the Federal Court of Canada and argued that we had a right to see those tweets, that it was a government service like any other. Remember, this isn't Guilbeault's personal account. It's his government account. He has more than 20 government staff running his Twitter account. It might sound like a small thing, but if Guilbeault can cut us off from receiving news,
who else can?
Information from the government, what else can he cut off?
Not just him, but who else can do that? I mean, what's stopping, Justin Trudeau from blocking out other Canadians, right? Blocking out Rebel News or True North or even myself. It's just, where does it end? So this set the precedent that, hey, government officials, you're not allowed, even though you run your own account, you're not allowed to block people. We're not going to allow it. So thankfully that got overturned. I'd love to know what you guys think down below in the comments of this. Is this a victory? Is this not a victory? Let me know. I actually did forget, and I do want to add a little bit more details because Ezra does admit that this is a victory, but at what cost? So when you follow the thread and you go all the way, it's a very long thread. You go, partly way down, you'll see that today Guilbeault finally caved. He agreed to a consent order, but the really good stuff to know is down here. P.S. I'm glad that court order Guilbeault to pay us $20,000 in legal fees, but in reality, we spent over $95,000. If you believe this is an important victory, please help us pay our legal bill by visiting twitterlawsuit.ca. You can find this right on Ezra Levant's Twitter and his Twitter thread. PPS, I'm savoring this victory over that sanctimonious creep Guilbeault, but unfortunately Rebel News is under attack by other government censors too. That's the thing about the left. They're relentless and they hate the idea of independent news organizations that doesn't obey them. If you can help us stay strong, please click twitterlawsuit.ca. I promise I'll keep fighting for freedom. Thanks. PPPS, special thanks to our freedom fighting lawyers led by Chad Williamson. So even though they did get, $20,000 in sort of a reimbursement and an oopsie fee from Stephen Guilbeault or the government, which at the end of the day, that money is our taxpayers' money. So we kind of just funded this entire debacle against Rebel News, which is really sad and unfortunate. I wish it came from Guilbeault's personal salary instead of, a government purse. But nonetheless, it's kind of set things in stone that, hey, you can't do this. You can't get away with this because people have a right to know what government officials are saying. Anyways, that's going to wrap that video up. I do have another headline pulled up here, which is very, very weird. It's from notthebee.com. This is a real headline from a real newspaper in Canada. You guys, Canada goes hard in the paint with their pro-mutilation stance on trans issues, and it's beyond my comprehension, but unfortunately, I must share it with you. Example of the day. TheStar.com said, it's a privilege, not a right, to know your kid's gender identity. It's a hard truth that some kids live with parents who are transphobic. No province should forcibly out-gender non-conforming kids to these parents. Yes, published by the Lord's Day of all days, it's a privilege, not a right, to know your kid's gender identity. This is beyond dystopian sci-fi, beyond parody. This is straight up the world we live in, and it's scary. Let's jump right in and see what this author is all about. First things first. My son, Zach, is transgender. He told us nonchalantly at bedtime 3 years ago because he's only 11. So far, his transition has been strictly social. New pronouns, new clothes, new haircut, new name. With few exceptions, it's been a nothing burger as it sounds. By the time he has his first appointment at the Sick Kids Gender Clinic in August 2024, he'll be 12 and a half, and we'll have been on the wait list for 18 months. If 4 years into his transition, he chooses gender-affirming medication, it will not be an impulsive decision. Transitioning a kid at 8 years old, check. And as if it wasn't enough to sterilize a kid, here's how Julie feels when others don't trans their kids. As an urban, liberal, agnostic Canadian, the hardest part of parenting a trans kid has been watching the anti-trans groundswell, particularly in the UK and the US. As of this month, 22 U.S. states have enacted laws or policies banning gender-affirming care for youth up to the age of 18, despite evidence that this care does more good than harm. I've cried often for those kids and their parents, and I've cried for fear those baseless laws will make their way north of the border. So let me just drop a little bit of reality here. Alcohol, there's a legal age limit. Driving, there's a legal age limit. Even medicine, marijuana, which is now legal in Canada and is a prescribed medicine. You can get marijuana as a prescribed medicine. You can go with a medical card and purchase, I think it's even more medicine than you can have recreational cannabis. You don't give cannabis to minors. There's even though it's a medicine, right? You cannot give that because it's not good for them. And that's just medicine that you take once and then it goes out your system within days or weeks. It's not an actual surgery. So we have laws of consent or ages of consent. We have laws that protect minors for a certain reason. And it just seems like this almost profitable area of medicine, right? Of this whole changing genders thing for kids, for minors, is getting out of hand. And a lot of people are standing up to it. It's very, very weird. I think that anyone who wants to transition, once they're an adult, once they've reached a certain age of consent or a certain legal age and they're no longer a minor, they can vote, they can pay their taxes, they can get jobs, they can work, they can drive a car, buy alcohol, tobacco, all of those things. Once you reach that age, nobody cares what you do. Go ahead and transition. But a kid can't make life-altering decisions on their own. That's why we have laws to protect them. Except this law now is trying to make kids have a certain type of ability or power over parental consent, which is where this is really starting to piss off a lot of people. So there is a massive culture shift for a lot of people here in Canada. And it's obviously in the U.S. and you kind of have to pick a side. You have to pick a side. Either you're pro protecting kids or you just don't care and you think that ages of consent shouldn't exist and there's no boundaries. Very weird. I'm going to leave that story with you. I'd love to know what you guys think about any of the stories that I covered. Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to like, subscribe, share this video, Facebook groups if you haven't yet, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now. Thanks so much for making it to the end of the video. If you want to support the channel financially, you can do so by checking out the merch shop linked right up there. Or if you want to do something for free, which is also absolutely acceptable and highly encouraged, you can subscribe right there. If you want to continue watching videos like this, you can do so by clicking or tapping right there to watch the next upcoming video. And if you want to watch a little bit of different content, but also Canadian stuff, you can do so by clicking right up there. That's my second channel, House of Canada, also known as the House of Commons Highlights. Thank you so much for watching. I look forward to seeing you in the next video.